This conference will
There
now
we
be
go.
recorded.
There we go with that. This conference will now be recorded. And hey, Teresa, we're
Are
on
you
the air.
editing? Is this being edited?
I'm not going to edit this. You know me, I don't edit video.
You're not
This
going
is
to edit?
no,
All
no. I'm
right.
just going to tell everybody welcome to the Safe and Safe Space podcast with Tammy D. And I have my friend, my mentor, my hero, Teresa Kuhn here today. She is probably one of the most interesting people on the planet. On the in the whole solar system, perhaps. Amazing story, an amazing person, super type A personality. She does it all, and she works with. I mean, how would you describe what you do, Teresa? Tell us, in your own little elevator pitch about who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into some more of the nitty gritty in just a second.
Well, Tammy, as always, I am flattered and excited to be here with you. It's actually at nighttime, and you're hilarious. As long as I've known you, which has been, I don't know, 15 years maybe, a
Yeah, I think
long
so.
time. You never edit, and I always want edits. And
I
so
can edit.
that
Just
started with me saying, Are we
well,
editing? And you're like, Hell no, I'm recording.
no, because I can edit pretty well in in MP3s and stuff, but I just don't do the video thing. I just don't have the I guess I don't have the patience for it. But anyway, you look terrific. And how are you doing? And what is it that you actually tell people who you are and what you do and where you are, and you look like you're in some sort of doctor's office there with that little thing in the background, but
Oh, this?
yes, that's your
Uh,
modern art. Okay.
it was the solution to helping my videos look a little bit more professional in terms of background. So it's interesting. It's an interesting.
Well, what's the matter? They didn't like the dirty laundry in the background, or the mariachi music, or dancers, or
I
the
think those are
chippewas.
your. I think those are your videos, not mine.
Okay, so Teresa, who are you, and what I always ask that? Who are you, and what do you do?
Who
What is it
am
you
I?
do for people?
That's such a complicated question. Who am I? And I am not as dynamic and as interesting as how you present me, and I'm flattered. You're always so sweet, and so thank you, Tammy. I, in terms of the podcast, what we're talking about tonight, I am a wealth and retirement income strategist and an entrepreneur, business owner. I love entrepreneurship. I love business. I love the conversation. I actually love many conversations. I'm very curious about a lot of things, but the business that I'm in and what I help people with is um, growing their wealth and figuring out a way to retire, a word that I don't really like, but a lot of people like. They want to retire, they want to be put out of service. I think what people really want is
They want their lives back.
they want options, and they want cash, like a paycheck that they don't have to worry about, and they don't want to stress about money. And so that's what I do. That's what I help people with.
And I think that's everybody right now seems to be stressed about money. Uh, is it even possible, do you think, anymore now? I mean, you and I have watched this thing unfold for years, what's going on, so we're not really that surprised. But right now, people are very, very concerned. People are being told there's no inflation, but we know better. And it's amazing to me how they think they can pull the wool over your eyes with these crazy news reports. Oh, inflation is zero. Y- You know, uh, so I'm wondering, what are your clients saying? What are you doing to help them? Because taxes and everything else it's just eating their money.
So I think back at how long ago did we start on radio and podcasting? I mean, we
Oh
were
my
cutting edge.
gosh.
We were doing it before anybody was doing, not radio. We're not that old, but we transitioned from radio to podcast
Yeah.
way
Yes,
back.
you were a
And
leader
we
in
were
that.
having conversations way back then, right? So we were talking about how one day we were going to realize how they were going to tax the heck out of us. And we're not there yet. We know it's coming, they're talking about it. Look at what just passed, right? In terms of the climate change bill and the 87,000 IRS agents to go out and audit
Well,
us
but
because
Teresa,
they're
that's
going to
all.
raise taxes. And
That's with good intentions. Those
of
IRS
course
agents are
it
gonna,
is. It's
they're
for
gonna
your
come in
own good.
for your. They're
It's
not
for your
gonna.
own good.
My friend, one of my, living in progressive California, and you live in progressive Austin, so you can relate to it. One of the people I heard say, well, they're just going after the rich, and I said there aren't that many billionaires. I pointed out that there's only like 64 billionaires in the whole country, and they need 87,000 agents to go after all of them, all of whom, by the way, have lawyers, staffs of lawyers to make
They have
sure.
tax departments. Do you think they're not using every loophole and every regulation in the IRS code to pay as little taxes as possible? Of course they are. They don't have taxable income like the rest of us, right? And so they've got cash flow, they've got assets on their balance sheet, they don't have taxable income. It's like people are making fun of Donald Trump, think what you want about him. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, his secretary was paying more, secretary at the time was paying more in taxes than he was. It's not because he's got taxable income. None of these guys have taxable income. They're going after people that have taxable income. And that's the rest of us.
Right, they're
So
shaking the
that's
sofa cushions. They're shaking the sofa cushions, literally. Everybody's money. They're going to be
does that
going
even
after.
happen anymore? I like coins are, I pick up coins because I think it's a connection with money and a respect for money. So if I see a coin, I'm going to pick it up. But do we have coins in our sofas anymore? I don't know. I've got a little jar with coins. Tell me you
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
don't tell me you have coins in your sofa.
No, we do have a jar for, it's my tip jar. It's always empty.
Oh, you're
I
getting
mean,
sick?
I never have any. I never have any money, so to speak. But I'm just saying, you mentioned the techniques that they're using, the estate planning techniques, the tax techniques, all that stuff. It's not necessarily available just to rich people. Isn't part of what you do is to show ordinary people how they can, take advantage of some of these same
Absolutely.
kinds of, and and
Absolutely.
and what vehicle are you using? I mean, I know the answer to this, but I mean, what's your approach?
I use whole life insurance, a specifically designed type of whole life insurance to give people what they want. It's so funny. If you ask people, hey, what do you want with your finances? They'll give you a whole list. But if you ask them, hey, do you want a whole life insurance policy? They're like, hell no. Why would I want that? So it's hilarious. If you don't lead with whole life insurance, you just ask people what they want, or give them a checklist. Do you want this? Do you want the opportunity to have tax-free cash flow? Do you want um, an amount of money to go to your family when you die that you know the amount ahead of time? Do you want uh, your money to grow safely and securely? Do you want liquidity, use, and control of your money? Do you want? And
I want
after
all
these
those things. I want it
boxes are
all.
like, well, what do you have that's going to give you all of this? Nothing. My qualified plans, they're going to be taxed later. I don't know what the amount's going to be. I don't know how much money I can take out at
No,
retirement. Um, so, you ask them these questions, and that's one of the reasons why I think people have no peace around money is because there's no congruency around what they want, what's in their heart, what they know, right, in their heart to be true, and what the misinformation that's out there is telling them and where they actually have their money. There's no congruency there, and it's not holistic. So,
but
what
I
we
do.
do is give them, reveal, right? We're revealing to them where the uh, incongruencies are in their thinking and what they truly want and where their money is. And we help reposition some of their money to give them what they want.
Exactly, and it's a great cash management tool. It's probably one of the few left that can give you those things because, um, I mean, when you're talking to clients now, what is inflation really their biggest concern, or what are they telling you? I mean, what are they scared about? I mean, your clients are pretty much set, but when you meet new people, when you meet
Not all of
prospects,
them. Not all of my clients are set. It's work in progress. Certainly I have very wealthy clients, and it's all relative. What's wealthy? Let's say 10 million and above. They still have concerns about their money. Clients that are, like the rest of us, right? There's concerns about money. Um, and so everyone's concerned. What are people more concerned about? Hey, do I have options in my future? Is all my income going to be taxed? What am I going to be left over with to pay bills with? Inflation, the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost to live, right? I mean, all of those are very valid concerns. And we can't control what's happening outside of our ecosystem. Like, can we really control what Congress decides to do in terms of the laws that they pass? But we can have strategies that will help mitigate and give options. So whatever they do, you're in a better position
right? The
and you're not
damage,
in a
you're
position
not.
of defense.
Well, yeah, because they do a lot of damage, and like they don't even ask anymore. They just do things. It's the craziest thing in the world. And one thing I always tell people is that if you want to know what's in a bill, just look at the title, and it always does the opposite of what it says, right? So if it says Clean Water Act on it, no,
I was
it's
thinking the same thing.
yeah, exactly. It always is because I knew immediately when inflation reduction. Yeah,
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 that's a perfect one. Let's save grandma, right? No, no, they're trying to kill grandma. Like it's the exact opposite in the title. It's for me how I operate. Like from my health perspective, whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to find the truth in the exact opposite,
do the
right?
opposite.
The
And it's
title is
not
the
just
exact
it's
opposite of what they're trying to do.
it's not being contrary. It's just now I think though one thing that gives me hope. One thing that gives me hope is that more and more people are waking up and saying this is not right. They're trusting their guts a little bit more, and they're saying I don't believe this. And another thing that gives me hope is like over 1 million people changed their political affiliation to like independent and recently. And so I'm saying people are leaving the establishment and saying, look, so what can I do for my own personal, what you said is really good, the personal ecosystem. You've got to create your own personal financial ecosystem that is resilient and allows you to pivot quickly in the middle of an emergency. So, I mean, how do you do that though, Teresa? I mean, you need to have that flexibility, but you need to have something that's going to ward off some of the demons that are out there.
I've been saying for a very long time, years and years, if not decades, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of options that you have. Tammy, we cannot anticipate how they're going to mess with us next. I mean, we've got ideas, right? But what you want is many, many options. So whatever they do, you've got options from which to make sure that you're not at their mercy. Another analogy I love to use, I love analogies and metaphors because especially with what I do, it's
Well, you're in the right,
everybody
you're in the right
stop,
state.
huh?
I said you're in the right state because Texas has always have those analogies, right? Well, that's hotter than a fried egg on a, so you should have picked some of that up living in Texas by now.
You'd think. But like, I lost my train of thought. That's so funny.
No, you were talking
So,
about you love the analogies and the metaphors and all that good stuff.
right. So, whole life insurance, everybody knows about stocks and bonds and real estate, but then you say the word insurance and people don't know anything about it. And Tammy, did you know that banks own more permanent life insurance than they do many banks, and they do equities and or real estate? Bank of America is one that I can give you the numbers. It's insane. You look at and it's all public information. And people are like, wait a minute, banks have never told me about permanent life insurance. No, what they want to do is collect your deposits because that's how they make 30, 40% return on your money, right? In the fiat system. So no, they're not going to tell you, and that's why so many people are so uneducated when it comes to what I do. However, the analogy I'm going to use has really nothing to do with insurance per se. It has to do with your kingdom. And the analogy of, like, if you, the Tammy kingdom, right? The Tammy Delu empire. You've got this empire.
Yeah.
I should say queendom, right? Not kingdom, queendom. And Tammy, you have a standing army because, you know, you have a queendom, right? And are you going to put every soldier on the front line at risk of being killed or maimed or injured?
No,
Tammy?
just the ones I don't like.
The ones you don't like, you're going to put out on the front line, right? And if you've got an army of 100,000, I don't know, let's say 50,000 of them are going to be in the front line. I don't know that you're going to not like 50,000 of them. But, anyways, I bet you are going to save, right, the best looking, the hottest soldiers for your reserves, for your last man standing, right? Because every army has to have soldiers in the front line and has to have soldiers in the middle line. I don't know what that's called. I haven't studied, you know, strategic warfare. It's just an analogy that I made up one day. And you need guys, soldiers, women too. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get killed by not being politically correct. Last man or woman standing in reserve. So no matter what happens, right, in battle, those last men, women standing can help maintain your queendom.
It
Does that
just
make sense?
it makes absolute sense. And you know, if
I
I
hope you
had a
don't get
queendom,
killed by the gender
I'd have a
people
queen.
or by the politically correct people, because I know I messed up on the genders and the
No, it just
soldiers.
you know what?
And
All that stuff is nonsense. It just distracts you from the thing. And I want to go back to a little bit to your background though. This is this is wonderful information that you have that you give to people and you educate them about how they can make their money do more for them. Your I think your thesis is that your money has to do much more work than it used to. And so you have to figure out a way to leverage it better. But you know what brought you to all this? Because you have a great backstory, I think, growing up there in Florida and having immigrant parents, and you learned all these wonderful values from your folks. So how did you get to this point where you're telling people about soldiers?
probably incorrectly, right? Using a terrible uh,
No, no, but there'll be some military guy that'll
strategic
use this.
warfare. If there's any strategic warfare, uh, you know, strategists out there, I know I've butchered the whole queendom thing, but anyways, you get the point. My parents were Cuban immigrants. In fact, if we go before them, I had great grandparents that left Spain seeking freedom to Cuba because there was a dictator and it was oppressive and they wanted freedom. And so they went to Cuba. And in
Uh-oh.
Cuba, they had freedom for a period of time. And then Castro came. And my parents, my grandparents left Cuba to the United States seeking freedom. And so I come from, I think, a long line of freedom seeking people. It's in my DNA. And I am sensitive to what's not free and what feels oppressive and propaganda, because I grew up since I was a little girl with all of these immigrants who were telling stories about what happened in Cuba and what happened in Spain and how they said one thing and meant another, and how they were dividing people because they know when you divide people, you conquer people, and where you steal from the rich and give to the poor when the poor have not always, the poor have not produced. So, in the name of equality, right, they were taking from the producers to give to those who didn't produce. Well, what happens to those producers? The producers are going to leave. The producers are going to figure out, I'm not going to produce here anymore if you're going to take from me. And is that not what we're seeing here today in the United
Certainly in
States?
California. I mean,
Certainly in
totally.
California.
I mean,
And
they're all
those
coming to
states,
Texas, cacking it up.
and those states that have this political persuasion, so to speak, these policies, what happens to those states in terms of emigration, people emigrating, leaving to the states that have more of policies that, like Texas doesn't have an income tax. Florida doesn't have an income tax. Why are so many a state income tax? Why are so many people going to those states to live? Because they respect producers. They have policies that respect those that are producing. And yes, there's a place for humanity, and there's a place for giving, and there's a place for helping those that are less fortunate and those who've made bad choices. Absolutely. I am so sensitive to those people. I see them on the streets and my heart bleeds for them. And literally I feel it. I'm a very feeling sensitive person. I don't know what the answers are, but I know their intent is not to help grandma. Their intent is not to help those people. If the intention was to help those people, they would we'd have solved it. Why don't we print money to help those people? We don't. Why don't we print money for housing, for feeding the poor,
But we send it
for
away.
we send it to we want to take away our guns, but we're supplying, warfare implements to another country. So they can defend their borders, but we're not defending our borders. I mean, it's the whole thing is insane. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. Just follow logic and see if it makes sense.
And it
It
doesn't.
doesn't matter to me if I don't have a political party. I just have philosophies and values that I'm aligned with. But just connect the dots. If nothing else, connect the arguments. Okay, wait a minute. Um, we need to take away your guns, but wait, we're sending
Billions of dollars worth of, yeah, high tech equipment.
high tech, equipment to kill people over there.
Yeah. People that have done nothing for us or to us or anything. And
Right.
it's just a machine. And I have to think that bottom line, it's all about money. It's all about people getting paid, contractors filling their pockets, and those kind of things. And there's a vast amount of corruption. I think also as someone whose family came from Cuba, you must also know the impact of corruption and what it does to countries, because that's usually the first thing that creeps in is this massive corruption, and then everything else starts to fall apart. So that being the case, is there any safe place to put your money, in your opinion? Because you and I both have the same ideas about banks and bankers. Banks haven't learned a thing since 2008, since the meltdown. They're doing the same funky loans, if not more. They're doing the same crazy shenanigans they were doing before. So they're not very safe. So where, if a person they're like close to retirement and they're seeing their retirement getting nibbled away, their 401k is shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. What do you tell them to do? What can they do right now to get in a better place?
Well, um, the first thing I tell people to do is look at your balance sheet. And if you don't have a balance sheet, create a personal balance sheet. Go on YouTube, give our office a call. We can walk you through very simply how to put together a balance sheet.
Living
And
wealthy financial, folks. That's the commercial plug. I'll put all this stuff I'm going to put everything in the show notes, by the way, people, so you can reach out to Teresa. But yeah. Okay. So
so, personal balance sheet, and give every dollar a job, and assign every dollar a role. And before you assign the role, see what role your dollars currently have. I just did this exercise with a client today, and I may be making this up, but I'm going to say about 90% of his dollars were in the front line at risk. 90% of his soldiers were at risk of being injured, maimed, killed.
That's not good.
That's not good,
And there's
right?
no reinforcements a lot of times, and there's not time for you to go out and get reinforcements.
That's exactly right. And that's what we offer with our strategies is the reinforcement. It's the last man standing. It's options. So no matter what they do, right? Whatever policies they implement, whatever happens to your life, look at what's happened with COVID, right? Who could have dreamed up COVID? No science fiction writer would have dreamed up COVID and written it in a book and it sold copies because people would look at that and say, there's no way that would never happen. That's too far out there, even for sci fi. It was real. So many people's
Somebody came
lives,
up with it.
well, truth is stranger than fiction.
It is. It is. But no, you're right. Nobody could have anticipated that this was going to be the way it was. But we all knew once it started. You and I talked about this at the very beginning, and even one of my good friends who's not even involved in financial services, Teresa, that this is going to devastate the economy because you can't turn off the world's economy even for 3 days and not have an impact, much less 2 years.
Who would have ever thought, who would have ever thought that the government was going to mess with the contract between a property owner and a tenant and basically say, hey, property owners, you're not getting paid rent, and tenants, you don't have to pay rent for a period of time. And talk about crazy in terms of banks. You know, the whole debacle of 2000. It actually started, I think, closer to 2003, 2004, 5, 6. It was in the Midwest and real estate. I mean, there were all sorts of signs that we were headed for catastrophe, right? Way before 2008, 9, 10. The car buying industry and financing, that's something to look at. That's about to blow up. And if you don't think that's going to have a domino effect on other areas of financing, you're going to be very surprised.
And
That is
well,
going to blow up.
that's a good point because I've been reading a lot about that lately. And that's one thing. Originally, when I first started working with you, a lot of your clients figured out that they could use this policy to finance their vehicles. And not only do they cut out the middleman, but they're not like with that shadow, that hand over them going, you missed a payment. We're going to ruin your credit. So how does that work briefly? Because it ties into what you're saying about the financing, right?
Well, during well, I don't know about right now, but in the last, several years, um, there's a lot of money. They are printing money. They have given away money. It was easy to buy cars, so easy. In terms of qualifications, people were buying cars. It's not unusual to have $1,000 a month payment for a car these days, right? It's just not unusual. Cars, a nice car, north of 80,000. Like you can't buy a really decent car nowadays for 50, 60,000. I mean, it's nice, but it's not like super nice, right? If you want a super nice car,
Not all of
you
us are going to
get
drive Lambos like you, Teresa. Come on.
no, 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 no. Private Lambo. Lambos are two, three, 400,000. I have no idea what a Lambo is. I haven't priced it, so if somebody knows,
I
correct
know.
me.
No, Teresa's
But
not
I'm
a
just saying,
materialistic
a
gal.
nice decent car, and they know the car manufacturers. Do you think there's a chip issue? Do you think there's a supply chain issue with chips? I'm sorry, the same chip that went into the cars are going into our phones and going into our computers. Did you hear that there was a supply chain issue for your phones and you couldn't buy a new phone? No. So I happen to know I have studied this issue because it's fascinating to me. Lots of money, and now money's going to tighten when it comes to cars. It's going to happen just like it did with real estate. But this is where I talk about setting yourself up to have options for your future. And instead of depending on banks and the money supply, you can be your own source of financing and enjoy uninterrupted compounding. Where if you do buy a car, that money that you spent on paying cash for the car, you're paying yourself back. And if while you're paying yourself back, it's still growing as if you had not taken the money out.
Right. And
Uninterrupted compounding.
Exactly, and that's a we're going to put some links below because that is a concept people have a hard time wrapping their head around that. It's probably one of the more difficult things, but it just has to do with how they're structured. And Teresa can tell you more about that, and she can even send you some information if you're really interested in doing this. Because once you get it, the good thing is the frustrating thing. Teresa and I have been working on her marketing for years, and it's frustrating because a lot of education has to go into this because these are not concepts that most of us are used to dealing with, right? And then people get off track because there's this terminology they've never heard of, and they get freaked out because somebody told them they should never buy a life insurance policy because it's a bad investment. So those things you have to be educated a little bit, but once you get it, you become like Larry Smith, right? You become a champion of the whole concept. Once you get it, you become a fanboy. Really, it took me a while to figure it out, but once you get it, you know,
Once you get it, you get it. And I know it sounds unbelievable. And if it was so unbelievable, I don't know.
banks wouldn't do
There's,
it. Jamie
you
Dimon
know,
wouldn't have a policy.
there's
He
so many
does.
people that have policies that we don't hear about. It's pretty remarkable how all that works. Not conspiracy theory. It just is. It's just how the way it is. Look
And
up banks and look up the balance sheets, the asset portfolios of banks, and see where they've got their money. It's called bank owned life insurance. They own a ton of it.
it's funny though because since and Nelson's been passed away for several years now, but Nelson Nash is like as popular as he's ever been, or even more so. I mean, I'm
I
seeing,
know.
um,
Isn't that an amazing legacy?
and you were trained by Nelson. He was your friend.
He was a dear friend of mine. I was personally trained by him. He
It's a void for sure.
helped articulate certain values that I had and I didn't know how to articulate it. He helped. Oh, he did so many things for me. His legacy is remarkable. And you know one of the things, Tammy, that he taught me, because this business, I mean, we've been in this business for so long when there wasn't the internet, when there wasn't all these people talking about it online like they are today. And he said to me, Teresa, don't stop beating the drum. Just beat the drum, beat the drum, beat the drum, beat the drum, beat the drum. And beating the drum was sharing and not losing focus and not chasing shiny pennies and not going into all these crazy things. Just keep beating the drum, beating the drum, beating the drum. And he was absolutely right. He did the same thing. That's exactly what he did. He never stopped beating the
Well,
drum.
that he knew
And
that.
today, that drum is still beating
Well,
thanks
yeah,
to all the work that he did.
because
Yeah.
it was his life's work. I mean, he realized that that was his purpose. He had purpose and intention, and those are some really great values. I think that you certainly have relayed those to me, and I appreciate that a lot. I think the other thing is, I wanted to talk a little bit about what goes into making someone like you do this business. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, you started off right in finance, right? And then you went into law. And so what was the evolution to get you to this place where you got the concept and you went, wow, this is what I'm going to devote myself to?
So I have a degree in finance, and during college, I was a bit on the industrious side, and I worked full time for a boutique Wall Street firm and saw stuff there that horrified me, absolutely and completely horrified me. I continued to work after college, before law school, went to law school, practiced law for a period of time in Washington, D.C. And my then husband was transferred to Ohio, and I was already licensed to practice law in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. And I said, I am not doing this in every state in the country, because my philosophy was to help my husband in terms of his career, wherever he was transferred to, whatever opportunities he had. I knew I could always, figure something out. So I went back to working with money. And at the end of the day, that was a blessing, such a blessing, because I figured out I'm a lover, not a fighter. And in terms of, can I fight? Absolutely. But the practice of law and litigating, which was the um, the work that we did, I'm a lover. I love on people. I love serving on people. I don't want to fight. I don't want that energy, and it's not for me. So went back to working with money, and realized working with clients that they didn't have the experience. They didn't have what they wanted, what they thought was promised to them. I always go back to those commercials on TV, the couples frolicking on the beach and having a grand old time and not having a care in the world, and all their kids, grandkids, around them, or playing golf or bridge or whatever. They're just happy. That's all you see, is they're just happy, not a care in the world. The reality was they were very concerned. Markets go up and down, they're being taxed to death, their social security is being taxed, and they didn't they didn't have what they thought they were going to get. And I went looking for strategies that were congruent with my understanding of how money worked, and was congruent with what my clients really wanted with their money. And I ran into Nelson, and it
And the
was magic.
rest is history.
The
The
rest is
rest is
history.
history. I mean, because of you, I actually got the privilege to meet him that time, and that's just unforgettable for me. And so, yeah, it's amazing working with you over these years and seeing you evolve into a much more confident person. I remember how you would never be on video. You were just nervous all the time, and one hair out of place, and you'd freak out, and you'd redo the
Still
video
freaked
50
out about
times.
my hair out of place, but
I think you look perfect. I just want to thank you so much for taking some time here to tell your story, because I think everyone has a story, and everyone has a unique perspective. And I think one last thing I do want to touch briefly on the real estate stuff you're doing. Okay, so you kind of moved. I wouldn't say you haven't abandoned the rest of the stuff, but you've got a new focus now, and it's called the 100-year mindset, I guess, if you want to give it a broad brush. What is that all about? And if you're a real estate person, how's that helpful?
Well, so just to clarify, Rick Sapio and I have been business partners for a long time. And when we met, we realized we had so many common values. Um, from a very young age, I was able to see, if I took an action, like if I considered taking an action, what the consequences were to those actions. First degree, second degree, third, fourth, fifth degree consequences. And I thought very, very long term. And Rick Sapio was the same way. And we developed this brand and this concept called the 100-year thinking, 100-year mindset. And the example that I absolutely love, and it's my favorite example, going back to, 1,000 years ago, maybe 800, 500, I don't know, long time ago, when communities would actually get together to build a cathedral, right, in their community, as a place of worship, as a place to um, uh, have something that the community could be so proud of. But these weren't cathedrals that they build in a year, right? A building that they just build in a year. There was so much planning and thought and intention that went around building these cathedrals. And they would consider design. Could it be a design where hundreds of years in the future, people would come back and say, oh my gosh, this place is glorious, it's beautiful, it's amazing. Materials. Could they use materials that were local, that when something needed to be replaced, that material would still be available so that it could be replaced with the original type of material? So much thought and intention went, because it was all about that cathedral thinking of, we want generations from now, we want a legacy, we want hundreds and hundreds of years from that time to enjoy what we're building today. So that was the thinking. There are tribes, and I'm not going to think of the tribe right now, that make decisions or have a thinking around, how is this going to impact 7 generations from today? How are the decisions that they make going to impact their legacy, their kids, grandkids, great 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 grandkids, going out 7 generations? And so We named it 100-year thinking, 100-year mindset. Think out 100 years when you're making decisions. And look, so many of us are not going to be here 100 years from now. That doesn't matter. What's that saying? It's that beautiful saying about planting a tree. The gift that you give when you plant a tree that you know the shade you will never enjoy, but your kids might enjoy, your grandkids, somebody else might enjoy. That's the kind of thinking that informs everything that I do, and especially with my business, right? And that's the kind of thinking that I share with my clients and I want them to embrace. Do they all? No. But I've got a lot of real estate investors that I work with, a ton of real estate investors. Real estate investors love this concept because they love leverage, the idea of leverage. And so if you're able to put money into a policy and then take it out and go buy real estate, you've now created two assets, right? You created the asset, the money with the insurance policy, and you're able to take it out and have the uninterrupted compounding and invest in the real estate. So they love that concept. And so what we invite them to consider is when you're buying your real estate, buy real estate with that intention of how is this going to impact, my legacy 100 years from now. And it's not to say you're not going to change your properties, but it helps you not make impulsive short-term decisions and make more intentional, informed decisions. Have a vision for what you want to create. Have rules around what you're creating. So it simplifies making decisions, right?
Even
And
if you
so,
even if you don't like your kids, you might like your grandkids. You still want to set it up for them, right? I
you
mean,
know, and we both like our kids, so it's not personal, but you're right.
depends on what day. But yeah, no, but I totally get what you're saying. So with the 100-year real estate system or process, whatever you want to call it, you're encouraging people to take their assets and bulk them up and make them work harder to achieve their goals now, but also with a view to how's this going to help my kids, my grandkids. Maybe they want to start a business. Maybe I'm leaving them money. So you always tell me there's some amazing things, creative things people do with these policies. So you're not limited except by your own imagination, right? I mean, you can use them for all sorts of things.
That's why Nelson called it the infinite banking system, right? Or the infinite banking concept, because it's infinite. The possibilities of how you use them are
That's
infinite.
perfect. Well, Teresa, what if people want to find out more about this? How do they get started? How do they start the conversation with you about it? Where do they go, and what would you suggest they watch or listen to or read or whatever?
Well, our website is under construction, but you could still go to Living Wealthy Financial. Just hopefully it's going to be renovated here shortly. We've been under construction for a while, but we have so many digital assets because we've created so much
Content. She's
content
the
over the
queen
years,
of content.
a ton of content that we've created. So we are working on putting that together. It's quite the investment of time and energy. But Living Wealthy Financial, reach out to us, schedule a call, have a conversation. That's it. We're super laid back. We're here about serve. We are here to serve, to help educate you, to help you understand. Um,
You
and
forgot safemoneytrends.com too. Teresa's one of our guest
aha.
authors. She's one of our guest authors. If you go to safemoneytrends.com, you'll see Teresa there right in the prominent first position, of course.
Ooh,
Would we put you anywhere else? And there's some articles. There's a lot of videos that she's done with Jake and Gino, Wheelbarrow Profits guys, the Bigger Pockets guys. Those are so excellent, Teresa. I have watched every single one of them for obvious reasons that we won't talk about. But one day the book will be out. One day that book will be
one
out.
day, one day soon.
I've
So much
listened.
content out there. We've created a lot of content.
All you got to do is Google Teresa Kuhn, and it used to be you found the Teresa Kuhn olive oil. We have pushed her completely out of the off the internet completely, and so when you do when you Google Teresa Kuhn, Kuhn, you will find 99% of it will be this Teresa right here. It took a long time to do that because there's another Teresa Kuhn. I forgot to tell you now. She has come on the scene and she's a professor in Germany. So we want her off there too. So we're going to have to push that lady off as well because, there can only be one Teresa Kuhn, and I'm so glad she joined us here today. And I'm going to end the recording, but Teresa, stay on for like 2 seconds afterwards, and we'll talk. And I'm going to get you on again because you're so fascinating. But we'll
And
talk soon.
Tammy, I just wanted, before you hit the stop button, just thank you for all you do. You've got a heart of gold and you are relentless. And it's an honor
Promoting
working.
you. When promoting you, I mean, when I promote only things I like and people I like and people that I believe in. And Teresa was the first person that if I had any money, I would have let her be in charge of it. She's the only person I trust with it. So
Thank
someday maybe I'll get. So let me turn this off real quick. And thank you again. You've been listening to the Safe Space podcast where you can say curse words and everything else. You have a total safe space here for any kind of thing. If you know some guests, some people you'd like to have on, please contact me and I will see about getting them on there. So hang on just 1 second and we'll be right back. Yeah, come on. It's not allowing me to pause. Don't
Oh,
pick your
wow.
don't pick your nose or anything because I'm still recording. What is going on here? Oh my gosh. Well, there's something going on with